So from that, I did genuinely believe that I could die in this situation. So I took the extra shifts at Subway in order to help to pay my bills, and that's why I was working the night shift. I was only 19 at the time. I hadn't really had any managerial experience, and I thought that going to Subway, I wouldn't need it because I was only a sandwich maker there. Funnily enough, they call it a sandwich artist, or that's what they called it back then.
And the people you worked with, what were they like?
So we had a very wealthy American man who owned the franchise, but he was never there. But he was always telling us, I'm always watching you. He would tell us what we were doing on shifts. He would speak through the CCTV like Big Brother. I was only 19, so I hadn't had that many managers at the time, so I found this very intimidating. I took him literally when he said he was always watching, because I'd heard stories where he was talking through the CCTV. I'd heard him talk through it. He would sometimes appear because he'd been watching CCTV. And the other people were the same type of vibe as me. They were like teenagers working there. We all didn't really know what we were doing, and it was kind of like the vibe that we were running the show in the absence of the real manager. So that night I was doing from around 6 p.m. until the early hours of the morning. I was meant to be closing the shop with keys, locking up. I was meant to be making all of the sandwiches all by myself. But that Subway was so rough anyway, because it was on the high street and it was near where everyone went out clubbing. It was always crazy there. One time a customer slapped a pregnant lady, and you would get drunk people like almost like rioting in there, the same vibe as like the kebab shops on the high street. But back then it was such a long time ago that it was one of the only food shops there. So you would get all of the drunk aftermath in there. There was always people smacking each other. There was homeless people who would use drugs in the toilet. We would come into blood up the wall from where people had been injecting it in there. It was a very rough store. And I did not want to be trading in there independently. So the shift was already really overwhelming, being one person and doing every department by myself. But as the night arose, that's when you move into the closing down of the store. So I locked the front 2 doors of Subway, and it was actually the coffee machine that I started on. So I basically took the milk out of the coffee machine and I went to walk it into the fridge. And that was when I put it on the shelf inside the fridge, which of course was a walk-in fridge, not a normal fridge. And that was when the door, which is a very heavy metal material, it slammed itself closed behind me from the weight. And then as I went to open it, that was when I realized that the door had closed behind me.
So what did you first do when you kind of realized that you might be stuck in here?
So at first, I didn't realize that this was what was going to happen. I thought maybe I could just twist the handle and get out. So the handle was basically, if you think of a long metal rod with a green disc on top, but the rod was bent. So I tried pushing it, but the handle didn't actually push in. But I was trying for a bit. It was only when I'd been trying for a few minutes that it sunk in, that I was like, I'm stuck in here. Started banging the door, which was really heavy and metal. I inspected the door to see if there was another handle or a latch. I did try for quite a long continuous time. At the point I thought, I'll probably open the door in 20 minutes. I'll get out and I'll tell my friends, how funny, I just got stuck in there for 20 minutes. I didn't realize I was going to be in there all through the night at the time. So I'm pushing the button at first, then I'm throwing my whole weight into the door. And then we had these big metal trolleys that they stacked the bread on, kind of like what you see in bakeries. So you can imagine I'm behind that and I'm pushing that into the door. Didn't work. Then I get this pot of brown sauce, and they had these big industrial ones, seen as it was Subway. So I'm using that to try and hit the handle. And this was my first L, was I hit the handle with it and it just exploded everywhere. It just felt like series unraveling of like horror, because I was so young. I didn't know how to actually process the emotions that I was going through. It was freezing in there. It was a walk-in fridge, but the temperatures were lower due to the volume that was inside there. It was a small fridge. You could probably comfortably walk in 3 people, and that was the room that you had in there. However, With the bread storage being inside there was actually only really room for me. I could probably put my arms out slightly, but that was it, not even the full way out. And the temperatures were actually lower than normal fridges due to the volume of, we had like frozen meat in there that was defrosting. We had other frozen items. So altogether that brought down the temperature to even lower than what it actually was. We used to wear these little polo tops for uniform, and I was wearing mine with leggings at the time, and the two together provided me absolutely no warmth. I got the sauce all over my socks and shoes when I was in there, so I actually had to take my socks off so that I could try and keep my body temperature up, because where they were soaked in sauce, it was making me even colder.
Did you start panicking? Did you cry?
I started panicking. I was banging on the door, but it just wouldn't open. I was genuinely like thinking through my mind, like, is anyone even coming in tomorrow? Because it happened, I want to say the date was 28th of December. So in my head, we had a Christmas rota. And as you can imagine, it said closed on a few different days, like New Year's Eve, Christmas. And in my head, I was trying to memorize this rota. And I was like, are we even open tomorrow? Is anyone even going to come in for a few days? Or am I going to be stuck inside this for 3 days? And then that's when I suddenly remembered about the manager constantly talking about the CCTV and that he was always watching. And there was a camera directly opposite the fridge door. And that was when I tried to be clever and think of a way that I could contact the outside world. Back at this point, we had like iPhone 4s, and mine was on the front desk of Subway's counter. Even though I was lone trading though, I wasn't heavily on my phone because I did know that the manager was always watching. So my phone was on shift with me, but it wasn't anywhere near that fridge. It was on the front desk. I couldn't do the hey Siri and try and activate Siri, but I don't even think that that was a thing back then anyway. These fridge doors were very heavy metal industrial fridges that you could walk in, and they did have about 2 inches at the bottom with a flap. So you could put your hand underneath the door. So that's when I got the idea to make a help sign, which sounds absolutely delirious now. Like I can see why I got trolled for this. So I wrote help in ketchup and I slid it underneath the door, hoping that the CCTV that was above the fridge would see it because it was directly over where the fridge was. Unfortunately for me, nobody saw the sign.
What did you do for the rest of the time you were in there?
I was losing my mind in the time that I went in there. I feel like I went through the stages of grief. So the first was almost like being delirious. Like it was almost so hysterically emotional that it was almost slightly funny, because at that point it hadn't sunk in and I did think I would get out. And then I started going through the crazy like deliriousness of trying to get out, which was the hysteric, like banging on the door, using different items, including my body. I was like throwing myself at this door to the point that I had bruises the next day. And then I started going through the more emotional side of it, which was, will I ever like get out of here? It sounds delirious now because now I know that I got out fine. But at the time I was like, could I actually die in here? I was genuinely like, what if someone doesn't come for 3 days over Christmas and I'm just stuck in here? I was thinking like, nobody's gonna come and look for me seeing as I don't live at home with my parents. And I was thinking of all of the things that could happen inside that subway, all of the criminal behavior that happened there. If the wrong person got inside, I thought that something really tragic could happen. And then I just went through all of the trauma of like being stuck in there. It was a long time to go without your phone, anyone to talk to while being stuck in really hard conditions. It was so cold that I was trying to keep myself warm. So from that, I did genuinely believe that I could die in this situation. I would get these phantom ideas that someone had opened the door in the time that I was in there. I kept thinking, someone's just opened the door, or I can hear something. I'd be like, they're there. Because the 9 hours felt like such a longer time when you're in there alone. I would like see the door open and I would turn around and no one would be there. So when it did actually open for a minute, I was like, is that even real?
And what was the feeling like when that door finally opened?
So when I first saw the door open, I was pretty sure that I imagined it. Like, I didn't even react to it originally because I'd imagined it open so many times. You would think that I would have jumped for joy. but I had envisioned it open so many times that I didn't even know if it was real. And the manager that came in didn't actually realize that there was a problem, despite the fact that the ovens were on, everything was out from the night before, and there would have been the ketchup sign on the floor. He was completely unbeknownst to the fact that I hadn't gone home or locked the store up properly. He was about to start his shift like nothing had happened. Then that's when I stood up and said, I've been in the fridge all night. And he just looked at me like he had seen a dead person. Like he literally looked like he'd seen a ghost, and he just said, the f***. That was all he said to me. But he didn't believe me when I told him. I told him over and over again, I have been in that fridge all night. The door's broken, I couldn't get out, what do I do? The shop isn't open properly. He didn't believe me. So he went and contacted the higher boss, the American that used to always watch through the cameras. And he very rapidly checked his CCTV and confirms that I wasn't lying, that the last motion of anyone in the store was the night before when I'd put the milk in the fridge. I was so young though, I thought that I was gonna get in trouble for not closing the store down properly. I even started cleaning the fridge because I was so worried. I was like, I'm gonna get in trouble for wasting sauce that I'd like accidentally opened on the door. When you're that young, I feel like you don't have that much sense of reality. And I was very much more in the mindset of, oh my God, I'm gonna be in trouble and owe them money for the sauce that I've splattered all over the place. He didn't offer me any medical assistance. He didn't call an ambulance. He didn't log it on an accident at works log or anything like that. He didn't do any medical checks. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just said, oh, you can go home now. When I got in, my boyfriend thought that I had been physically attacked from like the way I was walking and the physical state I was in. Subway didn't offer me any medical assistance or any help. They didn't check on me. When I was in A&E, they actually rang me to say, can you work the night shift tonight? And my ex's mum answered and was like, no, she can't.
So then what happened after that? When did it become a legal issue? When did you decide to go to court?
So it was actually my ex's mum who decided that we needed to get our comeuppance. She spoke to the medical team. Luckily for me, she had driven me to A&E. She had sat with me the entire time and we'd gone through all of the checks. Some of the issues I had was it took me a really long time to get warm after. It took me ages. I was sat in like a burning hot bath and I just felt cold and I couldn't warm up for quite a long time after. But I also had some skin issues from it, from being in the cold climate for such a long time. So all of these issues got checked over. And eventually, after spending a day there, I was able to go home. So from then, I had to leave my job at Subway because I just couldn't be in that environment. I couldn't walk past it. I didn't even want to go in there. They tried to ask me to come in to speak to them. I feel like they maybe wanted me to like pay me off because that was the vibe it gave me. It was like, don't speak to anyone, just come and meet up with us and don't say anything about this. It did go to court. There was a judge. It was a massive case that was up for discussion. I think there was very heavily around the idea of, could it have been fake? Because this was something that I had seen in like press and comments. She's a scammer, she just wants money. I've seen girls like her on the internet. She just wants 5 minutes of fame and money. But then when it did go to court, there were so many different findings and it wasn't only just the fridge and the treatment that they found. They actually got sued by the environmental health officers, not just me, they also sued them. There was a fee that was shown in the newspapers where they got sued. I think it was for a few grand, and everyone saw that figure and thought that it went to me. It didn't. They just broke so many laws that's why they got sued for that money. Not only was it the way that they handled my documents, they'd never even had a copy of my passport. I shouldn't have been loan trading. I shouldn't have been holding keys as a sandwich maker. The fridge should have had checks regularly. There should have been a release button inside the fridge. There should have been so many different health checks that were operated that were just never met in that one franchise. So it wasn't even just the incident that happened to me. Luckily, I experienced that, so they managed to catch them on everything. But if I didn't, they probably would still be operating to that bad standard today.
So did you feel justice was done, and what was the outcome?
The outcome was that I sued Subway. I do feel justice was served on paper, but deep down I know that I never deserved anything that I went through. All of these troll comments, I remember reading through all of them at 19, and it was just crazy. I was over 20 stone at the time, so this actually led me to go on a weight loss journey after, and I lost weight and my life has been completely different ever since. So you can say that everything that happened on this day changed my life forever. I'm definitely not the same person I would be if this hadn't happened. And Subway isn't even that great anyway, I prefer Domino's.